Welcome back to the Mindful Hunter podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jay Nichol. And today we are kind of doing twofold. We are going to do a gear list review for my upcoming sheep hunt. And then we're also going to jump into a Q&A because I thought it might be an opportunity to answer a bunch of questions people had about sheep hunting gear in particular. Now, one quick note I wanted to make. So I am preparing for my next big category review, and I'm going to do binoculars, specifically 10 by 42 binoculars. Now, I just made a post, excuse me, I just made a post because I'm still trying to track down a few pairs, and I know some of you have reached out before. I said, if you ever want to borrow my binos, just let me know. I did a crap job of keeping track of that list. So here's the pairs that I'm looking to borrow. I would need them for the entire month of June. I kind of picked this strategically because it's not a very heavy hunting month. Bear season is pretty much, wrapping up to a conclusion. Sheep hasn't started, and it still gives me lots of time to get people their binos back by the time the kind of fall season and August sheep hunting season kicks off. But I'm looking to borrow, and these are all 10 by 42s. I am being very specific about 10 by 42s. I actually choose to run 12s, but I think more people run 10 by 42s, and I think we can make conclusions about the other sizes based on those. And not all manufacturers make multiple sizes, so I think this is going to give us the best ability to make conclusions about lots of other binos while doing, getting rid of as few variables or getting rid of as many variables as possible and giving us an even playing field as possible. So I'm looking to borrow a pair of Leica Trinovid, a pair of Zeiss Victories, the SF, not the RF. That's the other thing. I'm not including any range finding binos in this one. We'll do those later on in the year. A pair of Swaro ELs, a pair of Swaro NLs, and Leupold BX5 Santiums. So if you've got any of those and you're interested in lending them to me for a month, I'll cover shipping both ways. Would greatly appreciate it. Let me know what you think. I'm trying to think if there's any other housekeeping. You've all heard me talk about mindful reviews. We don't need to talk about that. I'm 16 days out from a bodybuilding show and, one step away from losing my mind completely. So you don't need to hear me talk about that. Let's just dive into this because I think we have a bucket load to talk about today. So I'm literally just going to dive right into this. And then we're going to get to the Q&A at the end. And then if there's anything I miss or anything you guys want some additional information on, just let me know afterwards. All right, so the pack that I'm going to be taking is the EXO K4 7200. Now, this is still the prototype version. I do have the non-prototype 5000, but the 5000 is not big enough for me for a sheep hunt. Now, let me talk about this sheep hunt for a little bit. Now, there are some questions I'm not willing to answer because they would get a little too detailed and maybe give away some stuff that I shouldn't be giving away about the hunt. But for the most part, I'm going to, as always, I will be completely open and honest. But right now, my hunt is scheduled for 12, 13 days. However, my kid is going away to camp. So I could potentially stretch this out to as much as 20 days, and my wife wouldn't really care because without a kid at home, my wife doesn't really give a shit if I'm here or not, to be honest with you. So the 5,000 just would not be big enough. Now, I am planning a fly-in caribou goat hunt in September that we will be operating out of a main base camp from at the lake. For that hunt, I'm going to take the 5,000 just because, and I have a bunch of scouting trips and bear trips planned in June that I'm going to run the 5,000 for. So that'll give me an opportunity to provide you guys some feedback on the 5,000. But I actually prefer the prototype 7200 to the final version 7200, primarily because of the front zip and the stretchy pocket. I don't like the horseshoe zipper. I think it's unnecessary. And I don't like the stretch pocket. I also think it's unnecessary. I know that doesn't align with the opinion of the majority. Most people prefer the horseshoe zip and the stretch pocket. I do not. So that's the pack I'm going to be running. I do not run a rain cover of any kind. So what I do is put anything that I'm worried about inside of a dry bag or a waterproof compression sack. Yeah. Shelter. I'm going to take the Argali Awahi. It is a one-person sill poly trekking pole shelter with a liner and a floor. So that should be here in the next few weeks. I'm super excited to try that one out. I think the whole setup is sub 2 pounds and pretty roomy inside. So I'm really stoked to try that out. In the past, I've always been really adamant about freestanding shelters, but I think there's definitely a case on these types of hunts to go ultralight trekking pole. And I know there's a bunch of other trekking pole shelters that people want me to try. Get a lot of requests for the Durston X-Mid and X-Mid Pro series. I'm hoping to get a chance to try those out. I learned a lot from the one main tent review I did last year that was really more of like a tent highlight than a tent review. And I will no longer be releasing tent reviews until I've run them extensively and personally in the field, because I kind of came to some conclusions that were incorrect, and I learned a lot more after having them out in the field. I think there's some things that you can test, in lab or at home and come up with ways to figure out how it's going to handle. And there's other things like tents where the only thing you can do is take them out, run them in the elements, and learn from experience. So you'll probably see fewer shelter reviews coming up, maybe 2 to 3 a year. That's probably the most amount of new shelters I can try, but they will be much more thorough. Like if you saw the Hilleberg Solo versus the Stone Glacier Solus review, that's the type of tent reviews you can expect moving forward. For a sleeping pad, Big Agnes Q-Core SLX wide long. I love that pad. It's my favorite pad. Sleeping bag or quilt will be the Enlightened Equipment Enigma down 20-degree bag. For a pillow, I'll be running the Q-Core pillow only. I used to run a dual pillow system, and then I ended up weighing it when I did the tent review, and the two pillows together weighed half a pound. And I was like, okay, that's a little bit intense. I don't need to be carrying a half a pound worth of pillows. So I'm going to go back to running a single pillow, but because I'm a side sleeper, I'm going to use kind of my puffy clothes inside of a compression bag to get me up that extra 4 or 5 inches I need to be able to sleep on my side comfortably. And then my final piece of camp gear is the Z-Packs 7x9 flat tarp. And this is probably one of my most cherished pieces of gear, and one of those things that it changes everything. I love this thing. It only weighs 5 ounces. It's expensive. It's $300 US, but it's highly versatile. You can build yourself a vestibule. You can use it for glassing. You can use it for shelter on a rainy day. You can use it to catch water in the rain. I've done that before. It's really handy. Okay, let's get into the clothing. So first I'm gonna go through what I'm gonna wear in, and then I'm gonna go through what I'm gonna pack. So for my top base layer, right now I'm testing out 2 non-hunting base layers. One is the Lululemon Dry Sense hoodie, and the second one is the Cool Engineered hoodie. I'm really liking both these. The Lulu feels a little warmer, but the fit is a little more comfortable. I think the Cool might breathe a little bit better. There seems to be a higher polyester content in the Cool. And for people who haven't seen that brand before, it's spelt Kuhl, Cool Engineered. I wanted to run a new base layer. I've never really liked the Sitka Core lightweight layer. It doesn't have enough stretch in it for me. It's too tight across the shoulders. The sleeves are a little bit too short, and the sleeves are just too tight in general. So I wanted to find a new favorite base layer, and I thought it would be a good challenge to see if I could find like $100 option from a non-hunting brand. A lot of the problem with the hunting brands, stock can be expensive. Shipping to Canada can be expensive. Availability is sometimes an issue. And then sometimes you're locking yourself into a camo color that you might not want to lock into because you run a bunch of different types of gear. So I did a bunch of research, picked these two to test out. I don't know which one I'm going to run yet. I will definitely be running them both on several hunts, so you'll hear about them both. I'll decide kind of the week before I leave. Base layer on the bottom, Lululemon Air Mesh long 7-inch boxers. Bottoms pants, Sitka Ascent pant. My hat will be a Sitka ball cap. And a note here, I used to also take the Sitka sun boonie, and after 4 or 5 hunts, it's never come out of my bag. Now, when I hunt the Southwest, when I go to New Mexico in January, if I go end up back in Arizona for Coues deer, I will take that boonie because it's so sunny down there. It really helps you out. But a sheep hunt's not that bad. And a ball cap with your hood pulled up to cover your neck is perfectly acceptable. So I'm no longer going to take the boonie cap with me. Now, boots, and we got some good boots questions coming up later on, so I'm not going to get into this too much. I typically run my La Sportiva Nichol GTX on a sheep hunt, but this year I'm going to run the Schnee's Beartooth. I've found on my last couple sheep hunts, to be honest with you, I've been a little bit over booted. Now, I was trying to find a new pair of synthetic boots, but there was really nothing that I was happy with that I felt was a significant improvement over the Schnee's Beartooth that could really justify spending another $500 on boots when my Beartooths are in fantastic condition. So I'm going to run the Beartooths. Socks, darn tough over calf light socks. Belt, the Arcade Ranger stretchy belt. Poles, another new piece of gear here, the Argali trekking poles. Super excited to get those out. They have a new attachment system on the top that's actually going to let me attach cameras and shooting sticks and a couple other interesting attachments directly to the top of the trekking pole. Now for gaiters, I will be running the Ape equipment. I'm not sure what his actual model names are, and that reminds me, I need to ship my gaiters back to him because he's going to do a couple tweaks and replace a couple little components with some newer attachments that he's decided to go with. But he's a local BC guy. I'm really liking his product so far. He hasn't completely finalized his design, so I'm not going to give it the full-blown recommendation yet. And he hasn't actually opened things up full-blown for sales yet. I know he helps guys out here and there, but he doesn't have a full-blown website, and I don't want to send a bunch of people his way until he's ready for it. But keep your eye on that guy because I think he's going to make some really good stuff coming up in the near future. Okay, packed clothing. For my dynamic insulation layer, the Sitka Ambient Hoodie. For my static insulation layer, the Sitka Kelvin Aerolite Jacket. My rain jacket will be the Sitka Dew Point jacket. I'm not taking a bottom base layer. I never use long johns in August. And I may leave behind, so my bottom insulating layer, I have written down here, the Sitka Kelvin Light Down 3/4 pants. I may leave those behind. I have worn those like 3 times in my entire life. And I bring them all the time and I never use them. And I think if I've got the rain pants and the Ascent pants, like if I got cold, it's amazing how warm you get when you put on a pair of rain pants and the air can't blow through your pants. So I would say there's like an 80 to 90% chance I am not taking those down pants. Gloves. I have not decided yet. I always take like too many gloves or too heavy gloves. Stone Glacier has some interesting options that I might try and put my hands on, pardon the pun, just to test out. But for an August hunt, yeah, I don't even tend to use gloves. And the gloves that I have had the best results with are like the $4.99 Atlas rubber dipped work gloves. You know, the ones that are cotton and then like 2/3 of the glove is dipped in rubber, but the back of your hand and the back of your fingers are still just stretchy cotton. In hunts like this, I find what I most often use gloves for is when I'm hiking through really gnarly brush. Like there could be like huckleberry or just really sharp sticks and thorns. And if I'm trying to pull myself up a face, putting on those Atlas gloves, I can grab root wads, I can grab other stuff, and it gives me a much better grip. And then if things are sharp or pokey, they're not nearly as damaging to my hands. And that's really the only time I wear gloves. Now, mornings can get kind of cold, and glassing, it can be nice to have gloves, but like packing a 3/4 pound pair of winter gloves to use for 45 minutes in the morning, it's like stick your hands in your pocket and stop being such a pussy. I will pack an extra pair of socks. So that is the thing. On a 12-day hunt, I will bring 2 pairs of underwear and 2 pairs of socks. If I'm going for less than 7 days, I bring 1 of each. As soon as I get over 7 days, I bring 2. And then I normally switch out midway. Being that it's an August hunt, I may decide to ditch that philosophy as well and literally just stick my socks and underwear in a creek in the middle of the hunt and dry them out and kind of freshen things up that way. I'll play that one by ear, but that might be a good way to shave a few ounces. I will bring the Sitka Jetstream beanie. I find that really increases my sleep comfort at night because I run a quilt that does not have a hood, and sometimes it's too warm to sleep in the ambient hoodie or another hooded shirt. Just putting that beanie on, I tend to sleep really well. All right, optics. As of right now, I will still be running the Zeiss Victory Harpia 95 millimeter. I do have that up for sale. However, I am asking $6,000. Now, between me and you, if it was a podcast listener, I would go $5,750. Most other people, I'm not really willing to budge on that price. And I know that's a little bit expensive for that used optic. You can find them slightly cheaper. But this one is literally a warranty replacement that has never been in the field since it got replaced via warranty. It might as well be a brand new scope. And here's the thing. I would like to switch over to the ATX platform, but only a little bit. Like I really like my Zeiss Victory Harpia. So it's like, I'm not going to take a hit just to switch platforms. If it works out and I can find somebody who wants that scope, and I can just lose a few bucks on the trade, I'm fine with that. But I'm definitely not going to lose my shirt. I still really like that spotting scope. So if I'm able to sell that and put my hands on the ATX system, that's what I'll do. I'm also still not 100% sure. Part of me wants to buy the Kowa 99. And I know it's ridiculous and who needs a 99 mil spotting scope, but I really like big glass. And my philosophy's always been just get tougher, carry more, stop worrying about ounces. But anyways, that's where I'm at. As far as binoculars, I will be running the Swarovski NL Pure 12x42s, and I will be carrying them in my Alaska Guide Creations Kiss Cub Max bino case. I have been hit up by everybody and their brother because there's been a real resurgence of new bino cases lately. FHF dropped one. Kafaru's dropping one. Marsupial has made significant improvements. AGC even has a couple new models. I would love to try them all, but they're very expensive. Like by the time I added the FHF one and all the accessories that I would require in order to completely replace my entire AGC system, it was over $400. And if I'm going to test 2 or 3 bino harnesses, I'm going to end up dropping like $1,200. And I just cannot justify that. And to be honest with you, the Alaska Guide Creations is, for my style of hunting, perfect. Fits my rangefinder up front, fits my phone in the top. It has lots of room for my Swaros with the forehead rest attachment on it. It's perfect. So it's like, if it's not broke, why fix it? So for those of you looking for more bino case reviews, maybe hit up the manufacturers. Tell them that you trust my reviews and you'd love to hear my opinion on this stuff. And if they want to send it to me, I'm willing to review it. But at this point, I cannot justify spending that kind of money on on new bino cases, especially when mine works perfectly for what I need it for. Rangefinder, I will be using the Leupold RX 1200 TBR. For a low-end rangefinder, I think it cost me $200. I think this is just a fantastic little piece of gear. No, I wouldn't recommend it for guys, shooting 1,000 yards. I think there's way better options on the market. But for a budget option that's going to do kind of minor ballistics and a couple other really cool features, I like it a lot. A couple of my tripod and panhead, I'm going to be taking the new Tracer BC. Now, the BC is the shorter of the two models. He has the BC and the AD. And I think the BC goes up to 40 inches tall with the center post extension. And I will be running either the Tracer or the Wiser panhead. And that will put me under 2 pounds for my tripod panhead setup. A couple other little bits and bobs here. I'll carry a couple of lens wipes, the little cloth ones. Then I also always bring a handful of Zeiss wipes and a rocket blower. A rocket blower is just a little puffer thing that shoots air in your optics or your camera gear. And then the Zeiss wipes, I find, what's really interesting? Once your fabric lens wipes gets wet and your optics are wet, water on water just moves water around. But if it's raining and you use one of these alcohol-based kind of wet wipe style lens wipes, it will actually cause the water to evaporate. And I've had really good luck with those in really damp environments with a lot of precipitation. So I highly recommend putting 10 or 15 of those in whatever miscellaneous possibles pouch you have. Now, for digiscoping, I am still on the phone scope system. This is another one of those things that people have really hit me up about MagView versus Olens and which one should I do. And again, both of those systems are like almost $300 by the time you add in all the components. And you're locked into a phone, or you're kind of locked into the optic once you get it on. And with all the testing and the gear review, I'm always switching back and forth between things. And I really don't understand what everybody's problem with the phone scope is. It's cheap as dirt. It's like $50. You get a new optic, you buy a $20 new adapter, and it fits the new optic, no problem. I've got a handful of them now over the years I've collected. So no matter what shows up, I normally have something that fits. And you put your phone in a case and pop the case on the thing, and Bob's your uncle, you're digiscoping. So again, until MagView or Olens wants to send me those to review, or somebody wants to ship them over, I'm going to stick with my phone scope because I got it, it works, and why not? Okay, let's get into camera gear. So my main camera will be the Sony Alpha 1. I will have the Rode Video Micro on top. I will have the dual cotton carrier attachment system on the bottom. So it will have both an Arca Swiss and a cotton carrier attachment, so I can carry it on my shoulder rig or put it directly on the tripod. My main lens will be the second generation 24 to 70 mil f2.8 Sony G Master. I may bring my 14 mil f1.4 G Master. Probably not. It weighs a pound, and yeah, you get some cool shots with it, but it's not necessary to tell the story. For action cameras, I will be bringing a GoPro Hero 11 Black and an Insta360. These are very different cameras that do very different things, and I found combining the shots from all three cameras really increases the versatility of the storytelling. For batteries, I'll bring 2 Sony batteries, 1 Insta360 battery, and 2 GoPro Enduro batteries, the new ones. That's a very big deal that GoPro has significantly improved their battery technology, because that was a big point of contention previously. Their batteries are garbage. Okay, some other gear. Thermarest Z-Lite seat. I just take one of those foldable closed cell foam bed rolls and chop it up, and take like a little section that's maybe, I don't know, 24 inches long by 24 inches wide, something like that, just to sit on while I glass. And then my possible pouch, which has a bunch of random stuff in it. As far as my knife in my kill kit, I'm still on the fence. So I am actually waiting on a custom knife from Tanner at Frontiersman Gear. I ordered this knife a long time ago, which is totally fine. He was very clear upfront about the production time it was going to take. So it's not late by any stretch of the imagination. I knew it was going to take a long time, so that's totally fine. But there's a possibility when I get that knife, that would be like my fixed blade camp knife, that I might also get another ultralight knife from him. And if I do, I'll use that for my processing. But if those knives don't show up in time, I may also just run my Havalon Piranta again. I have another solid fixed blade option from Bruce Culberson, who's a local knife smith out of Vanderhoof that I really like, but it's a little bit heavy. And I've been thinking about hitting him up. He makes these skeletonized ultralight processing knives that I did my elk with last year that I'm absolutely in love with, but he's also pretty busy and he's got other stuff going on and I don't want to bug him. So, yeah, not 100% sure what I'm going to do for knives. Game bags, I use the Caribou Gear, I think they're called like High Country Carnivore. They're just a washable, reusable game bag. And I think I will likely take 3 of those. I don't think with a sheep. In fact, I could probably get away with 2, but 3 gives me the ability to move the meat around a little bit more and have it be exposed to the air a little bit more. And it's not that much extra weight. For water purification, I will take my Sterapen Adventurer Opti with 2 spare batteries because Sterapens do weird, wonky stuff with batteries sometimes. I do plan on upgrading to the USB rechargeable Sterapen, but until mine breaks or I lose it, there's really no need because it works perfectly fine. My satellite messenger device and backup navigation is going to be a Garmin 66i loaded up with the Backroad map books. I will have an iPhone 13 Pro Max for my primary navigation and also, podcasts and all that stuff. My coffee mug is a GSI Microlight 500 mil. For batteries, I will be taking a single 20,000 milliamp hour Anker 525 power bank, and I will also be bringing a 21 watt Anker solar charger, and then a single Nalgene bottle. So I will be moving away from a bladder system for this hunt. Most of my hunts previously, and I'll get into this a little bit. So I don't like bladders. I prefer Nalgenes. However, because I've never had an externally mounted Nalgene holster that worked well for me, if my Nalgene is in my bag, I don't drink. And if I walk and I don't drink, I get dehydrated and I get a headache and I get sick. So I switched to a bladder that would force myself to drink. That worked really well. Now that EXO has such a great Nalgene holster, I've used it several times. It works perfect. I can reach my water while I walk. I will be going back to the Nalgene. And then in addition to the Nalgene, I will be bringing a 6-liter MSR Dromlight. That's the newer generation of the dromedary. So it's essentially just a bladder with a a screw-on cap, and it carries 6 liters of water. So I can fill up my Nalgene as I go. I can use the 6-liter bladder for camp, and that will be my water system primarily. And then for purification, that's the other reason you bring the Nalgene if you're going to run a Sterapen, because you need a 1-liter jug to swish the Sterapen around in. So when I get to a creek, 1 liter at a time, I run the Sterapen, pour that into the drum light until I have as much water as I want, and then I have my purified water. I also bring some backup Aquamira tabs just in case the battery dies in my Sterapen. And sometimes, although to be honest, it makes it taste so funky, I don't really like doing this anymore. But if you're not going to be touching your water for a couple days and you filled up the whole 6 liters, you can just dump a couple Aquamira tabs in there, and it's a lot quicker than sterilizing each liter with the Sterapen. Moving to a new cook kit this year. So after having all of the frustrations I did with the MSR reactor in my deep winter hunt last year, as soon as you get down below minus 20, you're only going to get about 40 to 50% fuel efficiency from an isobutane pressurized tank. Basically what happens is at that temperature, there's not enough pressure in the canister to create like a flame powerful enough to boil water. So as soon as your canister gets below 50%, you just get this really weak flame that can go forever and never boils water. Now, if you stick the canister in your jacket for an hour, or if you shake the hell out of the canister, you can artificially pressurize it and still squeeze some more fuel out of there. But it's a nightmare. And I've been told many times before, especially for deep winter hunts, I need to be moving to a liquid fuel stove, and ideally a multi-fuel stove. Just with the stuff that I do, it's a safer, more versatile option. So I finally bit the bullet and I bought an MSR XGK EX, which is like, you can, I got to go look it up again, but you can literally put anything you want through this. You can put kerosene. I think you can put diesel. You can put gasoline. You can put Coleman fuel, like literally any liquid fuel this thing will burn. So wherever you end up on the planet, you can find something to pour in this deal. So I'm really excited. So I got that. I got 2 20-ounce fuel canisters. I got a spare Arctic pump, and then I bought the Snow Peak Trex 1400 titanium pan and pot, which is kind of like the pan doubles as a lid for the pot. And I want to give a shout out to my buddy, Andy. He kind of held my hand through this whole thing. He's in the reserves in the military. He's a forestry guy. He kind of makes me look like an amateur as far as being a gear nerd. Like the level this guy goes to and some of the pack setups he has is just wild. But he was the one who very energetically encouraged me to get this stove. And I kind of forgot about it. And he hit me up the other day and I was able to log on to the MSR site and I just decided to pull the trigger and order it all. So while that's a little bit overkill for a summer sheep hunt, I want the opportunity to kind of test that system out in a variety of circumstances. And with new gear, I'm just excited to run it. So in addition to that, I have a Sea to Summit titanium spoon and I carry 3 Bic lighters. I normally have one in my possibles pouch, one in my food kit, and one in my first aid kit. And that way, if something gets dunked or something gets lost, I always have a lighter. I didn't really get into what was in my possibles pouch, but something that's kind of significant in there is also a Leatherman Skeletool. So I can basically tear apart and fix anything I need to. And I bought a spare maintenance kit for the MSR XGK, and I'll be bringing a couple of O-rings and other things just in case something breaks on that. Now, for safety gear, for headlamp, I will be either bringing a Peaks Backcountry or a Sofrin HM65R. These are basically physically identical headlamps. I'm about to do a big review where I'm going to tear them both apart and find out if all Peaks really did was rebrand a $20 Chinese headlamp. It looks like there's some minor differences. I'd like to really find out how significant those are. So I'll be taking one of those, and then as a backup headlamp, I'll bring my Black Diamond Revolt. My first aid kit. I'm not going to get into everything here. I'm actually going to shoot a quick video tomorrow on my first aid kit because I made some significant improvements last year, and I think they're worth talking about. And then obviously I'm going to bring some toilet paper and wet wipes. Okay, let's finish off with food. Now, I want to remind people, I'll put a link to this in the show description. I did a video detailing how to plan nutrition for the backcountry. I also created a multi-page PDF with several example meal plans. It's super detailed. I get into the science of different macros and different energy systems. I think it's one of the cooler things I've ever built, and it's on my website. Let me look it up. So if you go to mindfulhunter.com/tools, you just have to put in your name and email address, and you will get a download link for my backcountry meal planning guide. Now, that does put you on my mailing list. And if you don't want to be on it, just unsubscribe. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I rarely send out. I sent one out the other day, and I realized the last time I sent one out before that was November. So there's literally like 3 or 4 a year that go out. Normally when I'm doing a big raffle or something that I really think is going to be of interest to people. So I will go through what I'm taking for food, but if you want more detail, or if you want a deeper understanding about how to build your own food system, go download that PDF. It's a super valuable tool. All right, let's dive into the meal plan for this hunt. So breakfast is a Peak Refuel Mountain Berry granola. I also have a tendency to just make my own breakfasts, and I use 2 scoops of vanilla protein, couple 100 grams, maybe less of granola, and then some freeze-dried berries. Absolutely delicious and significantly cheaper, and arguably a better macro kind of structure. For coffee, I bring 4 Starbucks Via, the dark roast or the Italian roast, the French or Italian. Mid-morning snack, I bring some trail mix. Lunch is a Green Belly's meal, one of the big lunch bars. Other snacks I bring are a small packet of macadamia nuts. And I buy these in bulk off of Amazon. And I have these little Ziploc bags that I put, I don't know, maybe like 1 1/4 ounces of macadamia nuts in, which I think breaks down to 250 grams. So this is something that I get into in the meal planning PDF. Yes, fats are more calorie dense, but they're not as bioavailable for instant on-demand energy. So while I think it's important to have fats be a significant part of your meal plan, you also need some legitimate carbs in there so that if you've got a quick hike or if you're going to stand right up and go do something that's going to require a lot of energy, you don't want to be putting a lot of fats and proteins in your body. You want to be putting pure carbs. Bring some whey isolate. I really like the Cliff Builder protein bars, but they have soy protein, and I'm not a big fan of that. I do prefer the Wilderness Athlete pack out bars. They're really delicious. And there's another brand too that I've had recently that I enjoyed a lot. I got to go back in my food room. But anyways, I'll bring some type of protein bar. For dinner, it will be another Peak Refuel. Now, the other thing that I do with all my dinners and all my breakfasts is I field strip them. And I take them out of the packets that they come in. I re-vac seal them. I take that little drying pouch thing out because that you lose like 1 to 2 ounces. And that when you're bringing 13, meals, that adds up fast. What I also do is put a shot of either MCT oil or macadamia nut oil directly in that meal before I vac seal it. And you're really just adding a couple hundred calories for a very minimal weight penalty. In addition to that, I'll bring some sausages, probably some of the homemade elk sticks I made this year. And then I'll bring an electrolyte mix to drink. I hate drinking regular water. So I'll bring a combination of Wilderness Athlete and Mio and other just concentrated flavoring agents. And then I do worry about my micronutrients. So I normally bring a greens product, a fiber product, some fish oil, and a multivitamin. And that's just like ends up being an ounce or two per day and really helps with my energy and my general health and digestibility and gut health over the hunt. So there we go. That is everything that I'm bringing on my sheep hunt this year. So if you have any specific questions about that, let me know. And now what we're going to do is dive into the listener questions. Now, as always, the people on here, give me 1 second to find this. The people on Mindful Reviews get priority. So we'll go to their questions first. Caleb asks, will you be taking the Telos TR2 again? I was going to take it, but then I saw the Awahi from Argali, and I reached out to them and they were willing to give me one for review. So no, I will be running that tent again this year. I like that tent a lot, but I want to test out something new. Raiden says, performance versus durability. What I mean by this is, for example, running the Sitka Ascent pant, although not as durable, you could tend to rip them. You have some better breathability. I think this is a fantastic question, and I actually want to dig into this a little bit deeper because I think this is a long-term question for gear too, because some of your ultralight stuff is not meant to last multiple seasons. You might get 2 seasons out of some of this stuff, and then that's it. It just breaks down. It depends how much you hunt. You should always get significant life out of gear, but I spent almost 100 days in the field last year. If I wore the same pants for 100 days in the field, I don't expect more than 2 years out of that pair of pants, like 200 field days out of a pair of pants. Now, I'm not wearing the same pair of pants every single one of those 100 days, so I think the math isn't perfect. What I'm trying to say, though, is there are times when I am willing to accept a lack of long-term durability in exchange for ultralight weight. I think packs are like this, that you could build a bomb-proof pack and it's going to be 12 pounds. Or you can build a pack that might, last you 4 or 5 good, hard, solid years and come in more at the 6-pound range. So I do think this is a decision you need to make on a piece-by-piece basis. As far as rips, I bring a needle and thread. I rip shit all the time because it's not just some of my most durable things have ripped. Like when you're on a winter hunt and you start wearing crampons, you're going to rip your gaiters at one point for sure. I used to wear corks when I was in forestry, and you'd rip the bottom of your pants all the time because you drag a cork down your pants. Even the most durable pant, if it gets caught wrong on the wrong branch, or you can rip it. So I think it's important to be prepared for rips. Now the breathability issue is even better. So I did a very specific back-to-back test. 1 year I wore the Sitka mountain pants, going for your durability choice, thinking I wanted a beefier pant. It would take longer for it to get wet, and it would be more durable. The following year, I ran the Sitka Ascent pant. For me and sheep hunting, I go Ascent pant all day, every day. They're going to get wet super fast. As soon as you start walking through dew, you're soaked within 30 seconds. Who cares? It's not that cold. And then as soon as the sun comes out, or you get up on a nice ridge and there's a stiff breeze blowing, they're dried in 15 minutes. I like the lightweight. I find them less constrictive. I find it less psychologically challenging to hike in. They don't get hung up on my knees the same way. They're lighter. They're more comfortable. They're stretchier. There's also a more athletic fit to the Ascent pants. I have pretty big thighs with the bodybuilding and everything, and fitting into other hunting pants can be challenging. So for me, I go performance before durability. It doesn't mean durability is not important, but it's not as important as performance. Ian Kirby asks, what alternative navigation gear, tools, maps are you going to use to supplement your electronic primary? Full-size folding mirror, forestry, engineering compass, or are you using some more compact yet reliable alternative? Topo maps or other? I know that the navigation tools required vary by an individual's skills developed and practiced, as well as the terrain involved. And my question comes from a forester's perspective with a ton of bush navigation experience. This is a phenomenal question. So let me tell you, in my opinion, the best case scenario and what I will be doing. I run my phone as my primary navigation device. This year, I will be bringing the Garmin 66i as my backup. And that is specifically because when I lost my phone last year, it shut me down. I didn't have a paper Mac because I got complacent. And while I thought the InReach could be used for kind of basic navigation, it can't. It's shit. So it could be used in an emergency situation to get you out of someplace, but it's not going to be efficient to use as a primary navigation device during an entire backcountry hunt. It's just not. So I switched to the 66i because you can load up backcountry map books, and then you really do have a functioning navigation device. Now, you still may lose both those devices. So I also carry in either a Ziploc bag or laminated, and I bring two different copies and I keep them in two different places, a paper map of the area. Depending on how big I'm going will dictate if I need multiple paper maps. And those will have a coordinate grid system on there that I'm comfortable with. I'm most comfortable with UTM. I can have my phone in UTM. I can have my Garmin in UTM, and then I can plot myself on the map at a moment's notice with a UTM coordinate. In addition to that, I bring a full-size Forester compass. I really like Sunto. Sunto makes really high-end stuff. I've had my Sunto compasses for so long, I don't even know what they cost anymore. They're probably $150 or $200. If you're in Vancouver, Deacon's down on Powell is the best place to go buy any of this stuff. They're a forestry engineering supplier, and they carry really high-end gear. I like the full-size folding mirrored compass for a variety of reasons. It provides more safety, more security. It can double as a couple of different devices, and it doesn't weigh that much. Like, what is it, a few ounces or something like that? And for people who don't understand how to triangulate with a paper map or how to interface a compass with a paper map, get a bearing, and then shoot that bearing, you could get away with a smaller compass. But the way a full-size Forester compass is designed is there's specific lines on specific places, so you can line it up with the north orientation on a paper map, and then you can turn the dial, draw lines to triangulate where you need to draw lines, and then take the bearing off of that compass to get you going where you want to go. And then you pick up your compass, you shoot your bearing, and you go. Obviously, if you know nothing about orienteering or shooting bearings or how to interface with paper maps, that was all just Greek. And it's too complicated for me to try and describe it over an audio podcast, so I'm not going to waste my time. Maybe I'll do a video on that. I'm going to do a bunch of scouting this summer, and maybe what I could do is take a series of paper maps with me and do a little video on how to orient yourself in the backcountry, even in lieu of GPS coordinates. Like, here's the thing with mountains. It's very easy to place yourself on a map in the mountains as long as your map has topos on it, because you can look for identifiable peaks and you can triangulate your current position by taking bearings on those peaks and translating that to the paper map. It's not difficult at all. And then you can measure distances, you can take bearings, and you can plan a route to get yourself wherever you want to get. So that's what I bring: the phone, the Garmin, the paper map, and the compass. And I think that is about as foolproof as you can get. And then my buddy Bob asks, main question is, are you taking the same fatty sausage meat from Commercial Drive Deli or venturing to a new cut of sausage? And don't forget the hard individual wrapped cheeses. There is a deli by my place on Commercial that makes these bacon sausages that are insane. Now, two problems. Well, one issue and one problem. The issue is I made a bucket load of elk meat sticks. So this year I'll be taking the elk. The other issue, when I went in last year, they weren't completely cured. And I did notice that they were getting a bit moldy in my lunch bags by like the 6th or 7th day. Now, I'm not scared of a little mold on some meat. I just rubbed it off and went to town and ate it anyways. But it did kind of have me second guessing that as my dried meat source. Maybe it's the high fat content. Maybe they just hadn't been cured long enough. He did warn me when I picked him up that this batch wasn't quite done. And he said, do you still want it? So I said, yes, I still want it. And it was delicious. But I highly recommend taking some type of dried meat. Like, it just breaks your day up so well having like fresh, it's not fresh meat, but having real food throughout the day, I think it's a really great idea. All right. Those are all the questions for mine for reviews. Now let's kick over to the Instagram questions, and I'm going to do what I can to get through these in some type of reasonable fashion. Zach asks, how do you find which lake you fly into? Yeah, my man, that's the golden question, and I don't have an answer for you. Combination of luck and destiny, and maybe you've got a buddy who's got some tips for you, but that's the golden question. If I knew where to fly into, you'd know where to go kill sheep, and I have yet to kill a sheep, so clearly I haven't picked the right lakes yet. Next question. What do you use for contact lenses on multi-days? Dailies, take solution case. So I don't wear glasses or contact lenses. However, I did wear contact lenses for archery for a brief period, and I bought dailies, but I don't wear them anymore. How stiff of boots should you use? 6 foot tall, 240 pounds, and a 40 to 60 pound pack. With only a 40 to 60 pound pack, I don't think you need that stiff of a boot. I think a 2 on a scale of 4 would be fine. For my own foot comfort and preference, I gravitate towards a stiffer boot. I think my Beartooths might be a 3. And I know my La Sportivas would be all the way up at a 4. So I prefer stiffer, but I also normally run like an 80 pound pack. So that is a very personal decision. I have high arches. I need to wear insoles that also come with metatarsal pads. Like, I'm pretty finicky about my feet, but I now have my boot system to a place where it's like bomb proof. Like, I can walk for 20 miles and I'm fine. And if you don't hear your question being asked, it's because I already answered it in the gear section. Pants with hip zips or not? I go not. I just think they're a pain in the ass. Maybe for your rain gear, but that's about it. What makes good sheep environment? Okay, there's a bunch of like e-scouting and scouting questions in general in here. I feel like those are a little bit out of my pay grade. I have yet to kill a sheep, and so I don't feel confident telling you I'm the guy you should be asking where to go kill sheep. There are other people who have had much more success. I think I'm a great guy to ask for gear. I can disappear in the mountains for 2 weeks, stay alive, and get out in one piece and relatively comfortably. But I still need to be more successful killing shit before I start giving people advice on where to go kill shit. So I'm going to skip that one. Sourcing paper maps. I wish I could remember. Somebody sent me this great link for this website where you can order custom hunting maps. Maybe if somebody could reach out and remind me where that was, I will post it on my Instagram and I will update the description of this show in the links below. Have you ever ran a bivvy, for example, a Big Agnes 3-wire? Yes. I ran an Outdoor Research Interstellar and I hated it. Now the 3-wire is a little bit different and has a little bit more structure, but I'm a bit of a claustrophobic sleeper. And once it starts pissing rain and you don't have a tarp over your head and you got to keep that thing closed all night, it's brutal. Brutal. I will never again run a bivvy unless it's under a tarp. And here's the interesting thing. By the time you add up all the weight of the bivvy and the tarp and potentially a ground sheet, it's like, why aren't you just taking a tent? Because it weighs the same. Only you have to set up multiple things. Like it doesn't, I think you like for a bivvy, you would have to be in reliably arid climate. Like, and that's what happened. I went to New Mexico, took a bivvy, never going to rain, pissed rain for 3 straight days. It was terrible. So no, I don't like bivvies. What are you taking out of your pack that you normally take? Well, the 3 things I already noted are my down pants, my boonie hat, and my long johns. How much cooking fuel? This is a great question. I know how much cooking fuel to take when I'm taking isobutane because I've done so many hunts with it. This is my first liquid fuel hunt, so I'm going to just do some experiments on my scouting missions early in the season and then kind of figure out the math from there. A buddy of mine told me that 20 ounces should be good for 4 days. That was in the winter though. Like if you're only boiling coffee once a day and boiling a liter once a day, it's wild how little fuel you can get away with on a summer hunt. What's the comfort sacrifice you miss the most when counting ounces for sheep gear? I don't know, man. I feel pretty good about my setup. More pillows would be nice. And I know that sounds like a pussy, but like being a side sleeper, I still don't think there's a good backcountry pillow. I don't. They're all shit. I would like to see a better backcountry pillow. Are you adding 2 phones for this year? Well, no, but I did go over my backup system in case something happens. Already went over all that. Most disappointing piece of gear that you were excited to test. Mine was the Steri pen. I talked with Steve about this. He had a really bad experience with his SteriPen, which happens. I don't think the QC at SteriPen is fantastic because I've talked to a few guys that had bad experiences, but then everybody else has great. So it's like I think it just boils down to quality control. I don't really have a great answer for this, man. I haven't really had a super disappointing piece of gear. I'll think about this more. Did Black Rifle Coffee Company Canada fail because they refused to bring up the instant coffee packets? That is hilarious. I didn't even know because there was a Canadian website for Black Rifle Coffee Company. And listen, I don't have anything specifically against Black Rifle Coffee Company, but make no mistake, that's just a marketing company. There's no competitive advantage in coffee. All these guys have is marketing. Coffee is coffee, and I'm a coffee snob. I will tell you right now, if you care about your coffee, you're buying it from a local roaster. Because any of these like mail order online companies, you're getting stale coffee by the time it gets to your house. And if you're buying it ground, it's definitely shit. So the fact that people think Black Rifle Coffee Company is somehow fundamentally different just because they have great marketing, it's not. It's just coffee. Now, I was very vocally opposed to Black Rifle Coffee Canada specifically because they didn't have instant coffee. And I just thought that was a bullshit thing to do to Canadians. Like, there's no strategic reason to not sell the instant coffee in Canada. You're basically just screwing us for no reason. And because of that, I have never spent $5 on Black Rifle coffee, ever. And either don't sell in Canada or sell the good shit in Canada. If you're just going to give us your crap, then fuck off. So I think that could be a fundamental reason. Also, it goes back to what I was saying before. There's no sustainable competitive advantage. So if you are not drinking the Kool-Aid of Black Rifle coffee, like if you're not swayed by their marketing and all like the veteran stuff they do, which is great. I'm not saying it's not, but we don't have the same veteran culture in Canada that you do in the States. Like, it's not nearly as big of a segment of the population. And while we respect our veterans, we also don't tend to like put them up on these pedestals, which may be deservedly so. I'm not saying it's not deservedly so, but the culture in Canada is significantly different than the culture in the States about how we view veterans and the military itself. Like, we are far more critical of the military in Canada than they are in the States. And I think that's probably more of the underlying reason, because when you have this company whose entire ethos is military, I don't know how well that flies in Canada on the whole. Like, it's just, that's not the culture up here. Pack gear weight management for a 10-day backpack raft sheep hunt. I don't know, man. As soon as you throw the raft in there, I'm out to lunch. And also doesn't kind of matter as much because you can keep weight in the raft. So I don't have a clue. I think for an average individual, a 10-day backpack hunt should be sub 70 pounds. I don't think there's any reason why you can't build a pack for 65 pounds for a 10-day hunt. Mine are always heavier. It's because I self-film. Creature comfort that you pack that others would leave out. The one thing that always comes to my mind is my coffee mug, my 500 ml insulated coffee mug that has a closable lid so I can make a big cup of coffee in the morning and carry it with me all day in my pack and just keep sipping out of it. It's not necessary, but I love it. Todd asks, why is my backpack so heavy? It's because you're still running a Kuiu pack and they're garbage, and it makes 40 pounds feel like 80 pounds. Go get a nicer pack and it won't feel so heavy. Not a gear question, but there's not many videos on scouting and e-scouting for sheep. That is a good insight. And I think you can probably figure out why. People are not in a hurry to give away where the sheep are. What's your approach for picking your lines and reaching alpine ridges? This is a super complicated question and something I take for granted. Having spent 15 years in the mountains, first as a tree planter and then second as a forestry engineer, I've tried to explain it before, but it's like I just get mountains. Like, mountains are predictable. Like, they were all, especially the Rockies, it was all formed with the same geologic process. So it all tends to operate the same way. And you start getting used to like, oh, when this has that type of shape, if I go around here and down there, that there's going to be a saddle over there. Like, it starts becoming very predictable. And you can look at ridges and you can look at the topo and you can just tell where the best places to walk are. Now, a couple tips I can give you is look on your topo map. Where the topo lines are farther apart, that means there's a more gradual rise in inclination, like in elevation. So it means you're going to be going up more gradually. And lots of times that will be the ridge because the ridge will fall off on either side, and that's where it will be more steep. So one, try and find routes where the topo lines are further apart. It means walking a little further and normally in these big arcing curves, but you'll make better time because it's not so crazy steep. Number two, look on your satellite imagery. If there's not trees and greenery there, if you're seeing like gray and shale, go around it. because it's going to be so steep and so bare. If trees can't grow there, you can't walk there. And then the final tip I'll give you is follow the contours. I've noticed spending time in the mountains with people who haven't walked in the mountains a lot, when they're looking across a bowl, they'll go all the way down into the bowl at the bottom and all the way up the other side because it looks like the straight line is the quickest distance between 2 points. It's not. You want to skirt around the side of the bowl. It requires less energy to stay on the same contour because you're not losing elevation and then gaining elevation. And if you look at the math of it, either way, you're walking in a curve. You're either walking on a horizontal curve or you're walking on a vertical curve. So anytime you can stay on a contour, and this also goes for like walking out or walking in, I am always hesitant to lose elevation because once you drop it, the only way to get it back is to climb back up. So when I'm walking out, I try and keep my elevation as long as possible until it becomes abundantly clear that I don't need to go up to get out and I'm only going down. So follow contours, be wary about losing elevation, look for topo lines that are further apart, and have a quick scan of your ortho imagery or your sat imagery to make sure that there's no barren rock faces that are going to bluff you out. This is something that experience is going to teach you. And the problem is, for most people, they do this 2 weeks a year. You would have to hunt for 20 years to get 40 weeks experience. That's not even 1 year. I spent 15 years as a forestry engineer, as a tree planter. So I literally walked in the mountains 10 hours a day, 5 days a week for 15 years. Like there's no hunter on the planet that will ever come close to that much experience walking around in the mountains. So find other ways. Do fishing trips, do scouting trips, take your kids on hikes. Like just spend as much time as you possibly can walking around in the mountains, and you will get better at visualizing where the most attractive routes are. Final question. What will you do differently this year that is going to set it apart from previous sheep hunts? I've gone over this before. I'll go over it again. I'm taking a mentor. I'm taking somebody who's hunted sheep for significantly longer than I have. He's killed significantly more sheep than I have. He's helped other guys kill sheep. And I am looking forward to the opportunity to learn from somebody else. So I'm going to stick my ego in the back pocket and try and have a blast and really enjoy myself and soak up as much as I can. And so that's the big difference this year. And that's not only true on this hunt, but all my hunts. I'm trying to place myself in a strategic advantage where I can bring my skill set to the table, but also take advantage of somebody else's skill set. All right, folks, there you have it. Got a special guest coming up, another installment of the Founders series next week. I will post an opportunity for you to link questions Monday because that interview is happening Tuesday. As always, if you could like, comment, share, or subscribe, anything that would help boost this in the algorithm, I would greatly appreciate it. If you got any questions for me, drop it in the comments section on YouTube or DM me on Instagram, mindful_hunter, or send me an email, j@mindfulhunter.com. Remember, if you want to loan me a pair of the binos I mentioned earlier on the episode, I would greatly appreciate it. And until next time, thanks for tuning in.